Good morning, everybody. Well, thank you for being here. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, welcome. Today you are joining us for coffee with the mayor and city manager at the courts at the city council chambers. So we're hosted by the Lake Havasu Municipal Court. We have Judge Kalali with us today, which is, yes? This is a unique opportunity because the mayor and city council hired just 3 positions in Lake Havasu City. We hired the city manager, which you know, Mr. Knudsen. We also hired the magistrate, Judge Kalali, and the city attorney. So this is the first time that we're having coffee with the mayor and city manager with one of the folks that the mayor and the city council actually hire. So without any further ado, we'll turn it over to Judge Kalali to welcome us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Welcome all to the courts. I hope you enjoy your time here. Everybody loves the courthouse, right? We love being there. We are actually going to take a virtual tour of the courthouse in just a little bit, but I just wanted to welcome you folks and let you know a little bit about what we do and what our goal is. And I think if you have heard anything about the courts and some of the things that we've been trying to do in the last few years, the idea that we follow is if we will put in a little more effort up front, we'll get a better result on the back end. If you think about that and the way the court system has been in the past and the way that we have it now, it makes a lot more sense to try and resolve issues while we have them in the court system rather than having them play that rotating game where they just keep coming back over and over and over again. So the idea is to lower the recidivism rate. And recidivism means how often do they come back after they've been through the court system. In the past, it's been the case that we as judges believe that we have all the power, and so when I tell you you're going to do this and this and this and then you'll never do anything wrong again, I expect that to happen, but that doesn't really happen in real life, does it? It usually doesn't, and so instead of taking that approach and then seeing them again in 3 months on new charges or whatever the case may be, we take a longer view of things and say, okay, why did you come into the legal system? Why are you here? And what can we do to help you get out of here forever? And so if you look at some of the programs that we've done, we have a youth court that does great things with our youth. We're working with them regularly, making sure that their grades are what they need to be and making sure that when they come into our youth court because they got themselves into trouble, that we're addressing those issues. A lot of times those are family issues. Parenting skills may not be what they need to be. There may not be parents in the home, those kind of things. And so we're having to address all of those issues with the idea that if we do that, and we instill in these youth the idea that they can be successful, they won't come into the legal system and stay. Because if you get a youth into the legal system, you're probably going to get their family into the legal system at some point, right? And they'll stay in the legal system through their youth. When they get to be adults, they'll remain in the legal system. Unfortunately, the people that they associate with are probably in the legal system, and then you get generations who stay in the legal system. And so the idea is, let's not do that. For the last 40 years, we've done a really good job at keeping people in the legal system. We do it great. If we want people to stay in the legal system, we should keep doing what we're doing because it's working perfectly. Or we can figure out a better way to do things, or a different way to do things to have a different result. And so that's what we tried to do. I think really the shining star in the courts over the last few years has been our Veterans Treatment Court program, and it's been just a huge success. Mostly because it is a community program, and the community is behind it, and we get the support from the community. But the idea there, again, is these veterans, when they signed on the dotted line, even though they may or may not have been asked to do so, said that they would give their life for us, that they would give their lives for our country. And so we try and do everything that we can to provide the services for them that they deserve and the services that they need, because they do deserve that. But what we are also doing is reminding them of a time when they had pride in who they were and what they were doing. And because we do that, you can see and we can see changes in their lives, and it's amazing. We could sit here all day and talk about all of the successes that we've had, all of the stories of lives that have been changed through the program. And you never want to wish somebody into the legal system, but sometimes we have saved lives. And I think that's really amazing. And if you could see the changes and these veterans then feel like they're part of the community because they see the community here. when we have these events with these veterans, you know, we see the mayor, we see the city manager, we see city council here, we see members of the community with them, and they're thinking, well, if they think that it's important enough for them to take their time to be here, then maybe I am important enough to make some changes and to be a good member of the community. And what I will tell you is that veterans typically are fantastic members of the community if they are healthy. And if the issues that they have been addressed, we're going to have a better community if we're helping our veterans do that. And so that has been a huge success. And I think we're at 165 graduates, and our recidivism rate is somewhere below 10%, which in regular court is about 85%. So just amazing, absolutely fantastic that we've been able to do the things that we've done. And again, I will tell you that it's because of the community support. One of the things that we did when we first started the program is we also reached out to some of the service organizations, veteran service organizations in the city. And what we did was we offered them food if they would come and meet with us once a month. And so it worked. And we started with 4 or 5 organizations. And now when we meet monthly, it's usually somewhere between 20 and 30 organizations that are represented, and there's about 50 in all that are part of our what we call our Veterans Resource Team. And what has happened then is, and Jennifer always gets mad at me when I use this example because I use it a lot, but the courts are like an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And when people fall over, that's where they land, and we try and piece them together and can do a better job, and that's what we're trying to do. But what we really want to do is push all those services up to the top of the cliff and push everybody back from the cliff so they never fall over. The Veterans Resource Team for veterans, that's their goal, is to make sure that those resources are available to the veteran before they come into crisis. Because we know, typically, if a veteran comes into crisis, they're probably going to have some communication, I guess, with the legal system, one way or the other. A veteran will, that typically is what happens with the veteran. So we try and keep that from happening, and that Veterans Resource Team is a key piece of that puzzle and has been working very well. I can tell you that across the state and across the country, our program has received a lot of kudos, and people are seeing what we're doing and trying to emulate some of the things that we're doing. One of my mentor, really, he was the head of the Veterans Treatment Court programs for the state, calls our program the gold standard. And he always says, well, if you want to see how to do things right, go see the Veterans Treatment Court in Havasu, because they're doing a lot of great things. And so that's really neat. That's really neat. Congressman Gosar also read us into the record in Congress, and so we're a part of U.S. history now, and I think that's really neat. And he's always been supportive of everything that we've been doing, and so it's been a really great opportunity to be able to give back to our veterans, but also to be able to change the way that we look at the legal system, and think about that and say, do we really want to continue to do what we're doing? Do we really want to continue to build prisons and jails and spend millions and billions of dollars in putting people in a university where they learn how to be better criminals? Or can we do things a little bit differently and maybe put the people away that should be put away? There are some people that should not be part of society, but the vast majority of people should be part of society, and we have to figure out how to make that happen. And so that's kind of the idea, and as you see us go along and see some of the changes that are happening in our court here in Lake Havasu, you'll see that principle is one of the guiding principles, that we're trying to address issues to keep people out of the court system rather than keep them in. So, you know, that's an introduction to what we're doing. There's been a lot of changes over the last little while. We are hoping at some point to have a new building here and be able to fit what we're doing and be able to bring more programs in. So we're looking forward to that and excited about that. We appreciate the support of the mayor and the council members. They've been fantastic for us, and we appreciate your support also. We know nobody wants to come to court, but we really want to make sure that when you do come to court, that you feel at the very least like you were treated like a person. You're not a number, you're not a criminal, you're not a convict, you're not any of those things. You may have made a mistake, but if we can work together and resolve that, you're a person, and we want you to be a member of the community. And so that's the idea behind everything and the role that we take in people that come to court. So please don't come to court, but if you do, we definitely want you folks to know that we do care, and we do want to help you make the changes that you need to make so that you don't stay in the legal system. So with that, then, Mayor.
Thank you, Judge. We appreciate it. Thank you for hosting us. So as part of the tour that we've been doing with Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager is we've been showcasing public facilities throughout our community that are both operated by the city, the county, the state, or the federal government. And we've toured all sorts of facilities and been to all sorts of places. So in addition to, on the municipal court, there's some other city services that are involved in this process. So certainly our police department is an active participant in this with the first contact potentially with someone that is going to enter into the court system. Our city attorney's office is also involved with city prosecutors, victim services, and those types of things. So there's additional services that we provide in other areas of the city government that are not included under the umbrella of the municipal court, but they impact and are interrelated. So I just like to share those points because that's what we're doing with our tours around the city. Jennifer Harold is going to show a video so you can have a virtual tour of our municipal court. Thank you.
Where do they new one, or do you have any idea?
Yeah, well, and that's a great segue in. So thank you to Steve for filming that for us and bringing that alive for us today. So that brings us into the first topic we'll talk about today, which is the municipal court and the deconsolidation. We've talked about it in the past, but on October 31st, the courts deconsolidated from the consolidated court system. So for many years, 25 plus years, we consolidated and shared resources with the county and had Superior Court services, Justice Court services, and the municipal court services. So the tour you just saw was the courthouse for all three of those services. Obviously, there's not even enough room for all the files, let alone the staff and court services. So part of the deconsolidation was because we're running out of space. And so in conversations with the county and talking about future plans for development or space out at that facility, there really wasn't a lot of opportunity. So the best decision was to deconsolidate, which is basically we did it in place. And deconsolidation means that we have to unravel a lot of things. You know, we shared staplers and we shared paper, and I know those sound really minute, but it's public dollars, it's your money. And so it has to be paid for by the right source to ensure that we have transparency among and faith among taxpayers. And so that deconsolidation is causing a bit of strain just because it's new and change is hard, and the space constraints are so great. And so we have in our capital improvement plan or our CIP budget monies to build a new courthouse. As it was originally intended when this complex here was built, again, we're up at the City Hall Civic Center Plaza in the council chambers, and then there's City Halls right across the parking lot. There's land available to build a municipal courthouse here. You're actually sitting in temporary council chambers as well. This is really a meeting room for the police department that they gave up many years ago for us to be able to use. But there is room to build a courthouse here, which would create a lot of synergy because it would allow for our city attorney's office, the prosecutors, and all of the people that support the court functions that are based at City Hall to be able to just walk across a parking lot versus having to travel 15 or 20 minutes across town to be able to conduct the services that they need to for the citizens of Lake Havasu City. So because of those space constraints, we're looking to build a court. Jess and his team are looking at numbers and putting together what that might look like so that we can come to council and we can have a full discussion about what that might look like. But ideally it would be a place located somewhere on this complex that complements the rest of the services. There's some shared space uses that we can use. So if the municipal court moves up to this complex, we have conference rooms and offices and things like that that can be shared resources so it can save the taxpayers money over the long term. So that's what the intent is of doing that. We are required to ensure that people that enter the court system have the right to a speedy trial. And speedy trials mean you have to have space to have those trials in. One of those rooms that you saw in the video that had, I think, 6 chairs around it, that's a hearing room. Basically not even enough for 2 or 3 people, but we do hearings in there and meet with folks. So it is definitely a priority for the city to be able to move this forward so we can continue to provide those services to our citizens that are using that service and also create efficiencies that will allow us to better serve those folks. So we'll keep you posted as that progress goes on, but you'll continue to hear conversations about that and what that looks like. Obviously, always keeping an eye out for the best use of the taxpayer resources to be able to do what it is we do to serve you as city government. So with that, thank you, Mitch, for having us today, and we'll go on with the rest of our topics. So.
Thank you.
Can we ask the judge a question?
Sure.
I'm back.
Judge, what are you doing for down the line for more communication from the locals, the residents of this town, and what you're doing? Is there something in the paper that you can post where, like, for instance, what we're doing for the veteran treatment court? Like what days you have certain things so that people will know. So a lot of people have never been in one of these court situations, see what it's like to be there. So I was wondering if you have any ideas that you might want to do on that.
So one of the things that we've done, and this is available to anybody who wants to sign up for it, is we have a Veterans Treatment Court newsletter. And you can sign up for it by going onto the city website and go to the city court webpage, and then on there there'll be a link that allows you to sign up for that newsletter. And it will tell you exactly what we do in Veterans Treatment Court every month, and we always have one of our graduates say something good about the program, and we let you know all of the functions that we're doing. Some of the things that we do that maybe you folks don't know about is with the participants in our program, we will go on hikes. We have a luau once a year, and we invite all of the families of our participants and our graduates to come back, and just everybody kind of gets to know each other again and have that time together. And that's worked out really well for us. And so those are the kind of things that we do. One of the other things that we do, and maybe you've seen some people walking around in orange vests when you're out at the park typically, is that all of our veterans will give at least 5 hours of community service back to the community every month. And we do that working with the city to provide those opportunities for them. I will tell you that there are two things when a veteran graduates our program, there are two things that they say are the best things out of the whole program. The number one, obviously, is the judge. He's great. No, so the thing that they say most is they say they love the community service projects because they have the opportunity to give back to the community. They all say that across the board, and you know, it takes time. We're there for 3 to 5 hours when we're doing whatever project we're doing, but they love it. They enjoy those projects because they really feel like they're giving back to the community. And they want to do that because they feel like the community is giving to them. So those are some of the things that we do. That newsletter is probably the best way to know what's happening with the courts. The newspaper has done a lot of good for us in that they're running articles on some of the things that we do and things that are happening in the court system. But really, I think the newsletter is probably the best way to know specifically about Veterans Treatment Court, what's happening with the program. So thank you for the question.
Sonia?
Also, besides the veterans doing things to give back, in the community, different organizations, think about this, could give to the Veterans Court. I know the community choir a couple of years ago gave them $10,000 because the net profit from our concert went to the Veterans Court, and they need the money.
And it was greatly appreciated too.
Yeah, so for those at home, Sonia was mentioning that the Veterans Treatment Court takes donations. So if you are looking to find a cause to contribute to, you can reach out to the court system and be able to do that.
I just need to provide this disclaimer: I do not take donations.
the program.
I do not take donations. Make sure that that's on the record.
Oh, is that?
Yes.
One quick question. With the disparity between the Veterans Court and the regular court as far as a return rate, is there a committee or something going on so that you can take those programs that work from the Veterans Court and move it over into the regular court? Because that's a big...
Exactly.
Yeah, if I may, Judge.
Yes,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
what we are doing is until we have more court space, we can't do any more treatment courts. So we're maxed out with space on what we can do with the treatment courts. So we have the youth treatment court, we have the veterans treatment court, and one more. Is there another treatment?
No.
No, okay, so we have those two treatment courts. We are in discussions with to bring additional ones online, but we cannot do it until we have more space. So that is something we internally can do if we put resources to it, but we can't do it without the space available.
My question would be, if there are programs that are working with the Veterans Court, I guess it would be the district attorney, couldn't they have leeway to get certain people that maybe...
Absolutely, but again, it's all space. Yeah, so that we know the model. Now we just have to be able to have the space to be able to do it. So it takes more time and more resources to do that. So we know the model works, but once we have some space. So those are absolutely conversations that we've been having, but we keep getting limited because of the space.
Well, I would definitely volunteer for that committee if they ever start one.
If I can, I think to your point, Judge, is that he talks about the fact that it costs more for a veterans treatment court. Up front, right. Yes. But the payoff is the long term is what we will see, the payback in the community from a cost and from a social perspective. So, but to get these programs running, it takes space, it takes money. And so there's a lot of thought tied to it, and I think you mentioned about maybe a drug treatment court or a mental health treatment court, those types of things.
Yeah, so mental health is the hot topic right now, and most of the people that continue to come into the legal system usually have some underlying mental health issue. And that's definitely something that we are focusing on and really want to bring to the legal system to be able to provide those services for them, because putting them in jail is only going to make the problem worse. And so that's definitely something that we're working already on in getting going.
Well, where does your funding come from for that?
So the question is, where does the funding come for the court system? It comes from you.
Well, no,
taxpayers. Taxpayers pay for it.
Oh,
So,
it is, but you need more You're saying because.
Well, we just those services take more services from our city attorney's office through the prosecutor's office. It takes more resources with court clerks because we're following up with the folks more regularly.
Okay.
It just takes more money and more time. Which makes sense when we have the initial upfront investment, and on the back end is where we save the money. But you have to have the money up front
Right.
to do it. So, one misconception is that people think is when they enter into the legal system, you get say a traffic ticket or
Right.
you get a fine. That the city could just get rich if they just gave everyone a speeding ticket that run down my road.
Oh, yeah,
It doesn't work like that. So the amount of money that we get back from Lake Havasu City, it actually costs us money generally when we're writing a ticket. So we paying for officer time, paying
Right.
for processing time through the police department, paying through our city prosecutor's office, all the way through the court system. It generally costs us more money when those fines are happening. So it's a misconception.
Less than half of that fine actually comes back to the city. The
Right.
rest is distributed to other agencies statewide.
But I'm in a few clubs, and if we knew more about the veterans thing that you need funding, it would be nice to know.
Yeah, and this isn't a call for funding for Veterans Court.
No,
I mean,
I
that's
know.
just one program.
But it's great to have the
Many we do.
conversation.
Yes.
No, I know,
So,
I just.
okay, we'll take two more questions on this topic, and then we're going to move on. So, Dave, we'll get you, and then we'll come back to Ed, and then since Mike, you raised your hand right when I said two more, so we'll get those three.
Judge, one thing you should have mentioned was, when you were talking about money, you and your staff got the grant. That made a difference in how the system works for the veterans.
So what he mentioned was that one of the things that we had done previously is that we had started the program really without any funding, and had been very successful because of donations that had come into the program, so that we were able to run a program. But because we got to where we were and we were doing well, we applied for a grant through the federal government, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health organization that the federal government has. And that grant over a course of 3 years is worth a little under $1 million. And we've been utilizing that to provide services for our veterans, specifically drug testing and some counseling. And so that's been very successful for us that we've been able to do that. And it's allowed us to add some components to our program and really make it, the gold standard, I guess.
Great. Ed, you had a question? Yes.
It's kind of facetious, but a short-term solution to the space problem, Hastings, Kmart.
Yeah, so the question is on a short-term solution. As I mentioned earlier, we're sitting in a short-term solution council chambers. That's been that way for 20 years. So if we do a short-term solution, it would be a permanent short-term solution.
Yeah.
That's the first point that I'll make on that. And the second one is there's a lot of tenant improvements that would be required. The court has a lot of security measures that are required that we don't have any leeway on. That would cost a lot of money. So if we just take the effort now to properly plan and build a facility in a truly permanent location. A great point, though. I'm glad you brought it up because a lot of people think those same things, and it seems like a great idea until you take the tenant improvement costs and some of those security measures. But thank you, Mike. Did you have a final question? Then we'll move on.
It's kind of a comment and a question. Someone told me back in the 50s, I don't know who it was, that it might be a juvenile that was going down the wrong path rather than a veteran. And at that point in time, I've been told that a judge might offer the suggestion to the particular individual that he join the service rather than go to reform school. And I mean, that was very popular kind of thing for juvenile delinquents.
And that did occur through the 70s and actually into the 80s that was occurring, but I can tell you now that the services will not allow somebody who is on probation to go into the services. So regardless, the judge no longer has that leeway to do that once a charge is filed and that person is either convicted or they plead to the charge. So long as they are on probation, they would not be eligible to go into any of the services.
About before they go on probation.
So it would, if anything were to happen before a decision was made, that would have to go through the prosecutors. They have that ability to make changes. In Arizona, anyway, they have the ability to make changes prior to conviction. After conviction, then the court has some leeway in what they do. But prior to conviction, any of those agreements would have to go through the prosecutors to make that happen. But there have been situations where we've had people that either had already been talking with the recruiters or knew that that's what they wanted to do, and we've worked as hard as we could with them to make sure that whatever needed to happen could happen so that they could do that. But I know that the services will no longer take somebody who has a pending case or who is on probation until that is all taken care of.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Yes. All right. So next topic we're going to talk about, which I usually start with, is road construction. So we'll give you an update on Kiowa, but before I do, I need to make some introductions. So first, we have Vice Mayor Dave Lane with us. Thank you for being here. We have Councilmember Jim Dolan is with us this morning. Welcome. Councilmember Donna McCoy is with us. Welcome. Thank you. We Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci send their best, but they're at a legislative conference down in Phoenix today, so they couldn't be with us. But they do wish us the best, and unfortunately, we won't see them for a while because this was the last month before they start the legislative session in January. So they'll be down in Phoenix doing the good work for Lake Havasu City and their constituents. But we thank them for always their continued support. We also have some department directors here that I'd like to introduce. We have Chief Dan Doyle. We're in his house today. We have the interim fire chief, Chief Adams. Welcome. We have Mike Keene, Parks and Recreation Director. And then we have Kelly Williams, our city clerk. I can't see it on the corner any further, so I'm thinking that's everybody that is with us from department directors. But thank you, everyone, for being there. Vice Mayor Lane, would you want to join us and give us the Kiowa update? And again, you have to stand awkwardly close to the two of us to be on microphone for those at home.
Which one do I like the most?
Yeah.
Let's see who you pick.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Kiowa Avenue. Anybody drive by there this morning? I did, because I live right there. It's coming along. They don't expect. Can you guys hear me okay on the camera? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I project quite a bit. The project's coming along very well. It's scheduled to be done next month in January. Originally it was supposed to be done 2 years ago, but as things happen, and right now, trying to get some of the equipment. That's what the holdup is right now. It's not the crews, it's not the weather. It's actually some of the equipment that ADOT. Remember, it's Highway 95. This is an ADOT project, so they're having a hard time getting some of the equipment. But they have opened up all of the right-hand turn lanes. So as you come, if you want to go to Food City, there's a right-hand turn lane to turn into that driveway. If you want to go to Big Lots, there's a right-hand turn lane to turn down in that driveway. And then if you want to go to Circle K, there's a right-hand turn lane there. And then there's a right-hand turn lane to turn on the Kiowa. So that should help with the backup quite a bit. There's an island that they put in that will keep people from turning left out of that parking lot to go north on Highway 95, with the exception of one driveway, that third driveway that's right there by the new Verizon store. In the future, that's what we're planning on funding availability to put in the signal light, so that when you pull out of that parking lot, you can go north on the highway and not have to have the problems that we're having now with people turning left and traffic backing up and all the traffic-related issues. If we didn't have traffic-related issues, we wouldn't need as many police officers on the street, right? Because and you all seen it. You all pulled up to a four-way stop sign and nobody knows what to do next. Yeah, we drive in this town too.
Yeah. You wait 3 seconds and you go. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah. No, what you do is you pull up, you just look straight ahead, and then just go like this, and go like this, and then go. No, all joking aside, it's not everybody has the same skill level when it comes to driving. We'll just put it that way. You all took driver's training, you sat in the car when the other people were driving, and you're thinking, God, I hope they don't get this personal license. But anyway, Kiowa, it's coming along very well. It will be done sometime next month. They have done some striping. They still need to do some roadway surface repairs, as you know. And then, so we'll see what happens. I don't know how good the surface is going to be. They haven't really committed to they call it micro sealing, so we'll see what happens with it. Well, hopefully that within the next few years they're actually going to repave that whole section. But for now, the Kiowa Avenue project's coming along. We're going to have less traffic collisions. So,
Excellent. Yeah, Norm?
Well, you just hit on my subject right up front, so this is pretty easy. I'm here again, and I've been here over the last 22 years for the same subject. Is the condition of our roads, the rocks in our roads, the maintaining of our roads, and since I've been here, and I'm tired of all this, I'm pointing the finger at one person. The same guy who's been in charge for 22 years is in charge now. Now, if you back up and go down Kiowa over towards where I live, there's been potholes there for 2 years from repairs, and they've never been fixed or done anything to. I mentioned to you when you first came about Acoma, the intersection of Acoma and Kiowa that was there. That got fixed right away.
Oh, phew, I was nervous.
The real issue is we have a lot of street repair because our streets are falling apart. But, you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how to get away from a bumper, a deprivation in the road, to make it smooth. That don't happen here.
Yeah, so.
And it stays that way all the time. But the biggest part that I've got, we had a rain, they got jumped up there and they came and cleaned up real quick. Then we got another big rain. Well, this other big rain brought bigger rocks. They're still in the street. There's rocks on Aviation and going down there where I live down there, bigger than my fist. And they've been in the middle of the roadway since there. Curtain is a sea of rocks. My son lives over here on this end of town down here on Eager. You can't drive down that street without running over big rocks. You know, it's a matter of, I know what it is, priorities, but it's time that these streets become a priority.
Yeah, so Norm, I'll answer that, Vice Mayor Lane, I appreciate the update. I'll answer that question, then we'll go into the additional topics, and then we'll hold the questions until the end, just so we can get through everything that we have. But I will answer the park, the road stuff. So, first, the question is about how our roads maintained and the condition of our roads in Lake Havasu City seem to not be maintained appropriately. It seems that most of this is driven by the storm issues that we've had over the last several days. So first, what we try to do with each road system in Lake Havasu City is every 10 years, a road has some sort of treatment done to it. So whether that's micro seal, re-asphalted, chip seal, some sort of fog seal, whatever that might look like, we try to hit every single road every 10 years. How roads are funded is through HERF funding. You hear a lot of us talk about HERF, and you might be, what does that acronym mean, and why is that even important to us? So that's Highway User Revenue Funds, and those are funds that are generated when you pump gas at the gas station. Those are the gas taxes. You don't see that you're paying them because the price is inclusive of taxes when you pay it at the gas station, but that gets sent down to Phoenix, and then the magic happens. And then some of it just disappears and goes other places. And then they redistribute it back to the cities and towns to take care of roads. And so for many, many, many years, those funds were swept for other purposes. Important purposes for the use of the state, but not the purposes they were intended to. So for example, they were used for DPS, to take care of DPS and highway patrol in the state of Arizona. Then there was a vehicle fee, vehicle licensing fee, the VLT, that was supposed to be $18, then it became $32. It got very political on that, and everyone was like, I can't believe we're paying $32 for this. I'm not advocating one way or another, but the roads have to be paid for somehow. And so that $32 went towards to pay for the DPS officers, to allow all of the HERF funds to come back and actually repair the roads within the state of Arizona based on where the money's come from. So they would just redistribute it. But now that fee's going away next year. We've been assured by our leadership at the legislature that they're not going to sweep HERF, but if there's not enough money, HERF is going to be on the line. And so we have to be very careful with that. Before I ran for office the first time, I was a council member in 2014 when I ran. I hated chip seal. It is horrible. It goes all over the place. The rocks get into your car. It makes for a mess for 2.5 weeks while they're laying it down in the spring. Then I got in office, and I looked at the cost difference, and I love chip seal. Chip seal is such a great way to maintain our roadways in a very cost-effective way. We're able to get to more roads more often and more frequently to maintain them. So that's the overall big picture goal of how we do our roads. So every 10 years, we try to do that. Right now, I believe we're at like every road at 8.5 years is kind of where we're at on the scale.
We've tried some different treatments this last year that actually took us down to less than that 10% that we try to touch every year, but we're trying to look at different solutions. To your point, we have X amount of dollars that we can use for roads in Havasu. That goes for our vehicles, that goes for our staff, that goes for our contracts. Whether it's chip seal or micro seal, crack seal, fixing the potholes, all those things, we have one pot of money that we can use, and we rely on the state to deliver those dollars to the cities when they're not swept for DPS or other reasons. So, but that's our goal. We want to touch all these streets at least once every 10 years. So then we have roads that are in the condition that they are. In contrast, if you drive to other cities when you're out there traveling and take a look at our condition of our roads, can it be better? Absolutely, given the resources that we have. But in comparison, our roads are pretty good as a whole. So I think I kind of want to make that point as well too.
Yeah.
And if I can, as far as the question on the rock cleanup, so we had a storm event on Thanksgiving. We had crews that were spending time with their employees, city employees, spending time with their families on Thanksgiving. That jumped in their trucks, got to work, jumped in the large equipment, and started clearing roads that evening. We have a little over 420 miles of roadway throughout the entire Lake Havasu City, so it's not something that we can just immediately hit a button and clear all streets all at once. We have I got roads in my neighborhood that I drive by and I'm patiently waiting for the crews who are working tirelessly right now and very hard to clean the roads. It takes about 7 to 10 days, typically, after a storm event, for the crews to go through the street and through the city and clear the streets. We got a pretty quick rainfall, and we have some larger rocks, and so this is taking a day or two longer than normal, but that's typically what it is. Again, 420 some miles of roadway with the staff that we have and the resources that we have. Based on that, we don't want to, we're wisely using the taxpayer dollars, and I think that's critically important. But we're working hard, trying to get it done, and so please be patient.
Yeah. When it comes to curbs, and because a lot of people say, well, what about putting curbs in, or can I put my own curb in? So let's first address, no, you can't put your own curb in, because if you do, water comes, and I'm not a hydrologist or a water expert at all, but they've told me it's sort of like ping pong. So if you have a curb in front of your yard and the neighbor doesn't, the water hits your curb and it goes and it'll take out their entire yard. So please don't do that. But there are some treatments that you can get with city, or go on the city website at lhcaz.gov. And you can look at some treatments to put in your front yard, so your front yard does not end up in the street when we do have these rain events. So that's one thing. And we looked at doing curbs, but curbs are so costly. You would think it would just be running a concrete machine up the side of the road, but you actually have to expand the width of the road. And all of our road systems are used as natural washings, natural drainage. So that's why our roads are typically much wider than you would see in other communities, because it's to flow all of the water into the wash basins and into the water runoff area. So curbs are just really expensive. The last estimate was about $50 million. I don't know if we've even looked at it in the last year or two.
Yeah, we looked at it a couple of times. The cost for curb and sidewalk is throughout the community is enormous, and it does shrink the roads down a little bit too.
Yeah. So so if there's any specific pothole road issues, see us afterwards, and we'll get those addressed. I'm going to move on just so that we can get through a couple more topics and get to your questions, which are important. So the next thing that we have going on is our annual planning session is coming up in early February. This is where the City Council has the opportunity to meet with city staff to talk about the priorities for the upcoming budget and the upcoming capital improvement plans that we have. I'll let Jess talk a little bit about what that looks like and some of the pieces that we have included in there.
Yeah, so the planning session right now is tentatively set for February 6th, and then right now we're having conversations among staff. Conversations are occurring amongst council. We're listening to the residents and trying to come up with different topics for discussion. These are big picture topics that we want to engage with council and our department directors and obviously again with residents about maybe reflecting back on the last 12 months about what we did right, what did we do wrong, how do we fix those things, and then looking 12 months ahead in terms of how do we plan for the future given the resources that we do have. And so there's a few topics that we've identified on there. As of right now, we want to have a discussion amongst council on the priorities for our CIP, or capital improvement plan. Right now we have a 5-year CIP, and each year every project in that CIP is fully funded, so we can expect those projects to be funded in the year that they're allocated based on council approval. But through the planning retreat, we'll be able to, or planning session, we'll be able to take a look at and make sure that those projects are aligned where they need to be. We're in the courthouse today, right? One of the conversations is, when are we going to build this new courthouse? Well, right now that's programmed for year 5, and this is year 1, and that's the new courthouse is programmed right now for year 5. So do we have to have a conversation about moving some project around? And it's one giant puzzle. So if you take one thing, add one thing to the pot, you have to take something else away because it's the same amount of dollars. We can't magically print dollars in the basement of City Hall. So I think it's important for us to very closely look at these things and prioritize. There's a lot of things we want to do, given the resources. That's where we're at. So we'll be talking about that and a few other topics. That positional analysis is a topic that we want to talk about for the planning session as well too. We've talked about a little bit at some of the coffees and some of the other events that we get out and engage the public. But positional analysis, what does that mean? That means that we want to take a real close look, because we haven't done it in a long time at the city, about fair and equitable and market wages for all city employees. So across the board right now we're going through a process. We've engaged the services of a consultant to help with this. We've sent surveys out to all the employees. It sounds silly, but this is over the course of time, our jobs and duties that we have as employees change. So we send surveys out to the employees and say, we need to document this. What do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis? We identify that in terms of a job description. Based on that, we identify a job title, and then we identify 10 similar cities in Arizona that are similar to Lake Havasu City, and we compare our job titles to their job titles to make sure that we're paying a equitable rate. And so that's very, very important for us to do it across the board, and allows us to make sure that we're attracting qualified employees to work for the city. And a lot of times the right employee can take the place of 2 or 3 employees, right? So we want to make sure that we're attracting the most qualified, and then once we get that employee, and we have lots of them with the city right now, we want to retain those employees so that we are able to provide good service. The cost of that, I have absolutely no idea. The standing joke that I have with council, when they ask me, Jess, how much is this going to cost? It'll come back with the survey data. Somewhere between $50,000 and $5 million. I really, really, really don't know. That's a pretty big gap. I'm hoping it's a lot closer to the $50,000. But so we're going to get some data back here in the next month or so, and that'll be we'll be talking about that with a lot more detail once we have some of those numbers and an idea of how to proceed at the upcoming annual planning session.
And so in the positional analysis, we know that there's positions right now that are really, really hard to fill in Lake Havasu City. And it's for a variety of reasons. We're rural, we're remote at times, and pay and quality is also there. But there are positions that you don't necessarily think about. So when you flush your toilet and your dirty water goes somewhere, it goes somewhere to a person that's operating a plant that's going to clean that water. And that's one of our most difficult positions right now to fill. We also are, yes, it's surprising. And once they get the right certifications, because we'll train our own, we'll do anything we can, then they move on to other positions in other communities at higher rates of pay. Another position that is very hard to recruit are police officers. Police officers are in high demand across the United States. Lake Havasu City is no different. And it's not like you can hire a police officer today and tell them that we start on Monday. They have to go through a variety of trainings and through the academy and a lot of different things. So it takes almost a year to get an officer on the street. And obviously, if we're going to invest a year in training, in initial training, I should say, to get them on the street, we would like them to stay on our streets for many, many years. And so this positional analysis will allow us to take a look at all of the aspects across all of the city and all functions. And as Jess mentioned, they're doing their job descriptions and their titles. I just want to be sure that you all know we have those today.
Oh,
we just want to make
yes.
sure that they're being updated and that it's correct for what the actual duties are that are being performed. So, and also on the CIP budget, as Jess mentioned, something new that has happened since Jess joined our team is our CIP budget is fully funded. So for the 5 years of CIP that are currently there, there's money or resources that are allocated from different funds to do all of those projects, which is contrast to what we did previously, which we had all of these projects available, all in the CIP budget, with not so it might have been this number of projects, and we had this number of resources, and basically the first projects that got to the money were the projects that happened. Not that that's a bad thing to do, but but it didn't ensure that everything that was on the list was going to get done. And so now everything that's on the CIP budget, which is a priority set by the mayor and council, set at the direction of the citizens, we can now ensure is going to get done unless we need to make adjustments during a public process, which starts here at this planning retreat in February. Coming up, our very last council meeting for the year is this coming Tuesday, surprisingly. It's on December 10th. We have an agenda that includes a couple of things, and if you want to talk a little bit about the exploratory well project.
Sure. On the so we have one meeting in December. The second meeting in December is canceled. It falls right next to Christmas. So and so we have on that agenda there'll be a contract for I believe it's Jacobs Engineering for a little over $700,000. And what that's going to allow the city to do is start looking at secondary and other alternative sources for our water supply. Very, very important. We have a rainy well collector that the city installed over by London Bridge Beach Park about 15, 17 years ago. It's done wonderful, served the community well for a number of years since then. But we need to start looking at alternative sources that are out there. And you know, this we have to, just like your vehicle or your house, we have to maintain the things that we invest in. So we're looking at secondary water sources, so then we can maybe take that offline for a few months and then maintain it and make sure that we'll have continued service, quality service for many, many years to come. Again, protecting the investments, the taxpayer investments that we've already spent in the community to provide good service for us. And also part of that contract too is we've reached an agreement with State Parks, Arizona State Parks. We're going to go on State Parks land just a little north of the Windsor State Park, and we're going to do some drilling over there for the purpose of trying to look at the geology and the ability to see if we can, the feasibility of whether or not we can pull water out of that source. We've done some of this in the past and have gotten some bad news, so we're really hopeful that at this new location that we can do some exploratory drilling and then identify a location for a second collector well that we have right now. So. Did anybody know that all of our water comes from one collector well over at London Bridge Beach Park? Yeah, there's a handful of you that maybe got on the tour with Brianna, and she's wonderful at that. But so it's kind of a low profile. You would never think that's happening. It's like a little brick wall with a building that's there, and then you have 8 to 10 different wells, or pipes that go about 103 feet down, and then 80 feet in one direction, 210 feet in another direction, and that's where all the water in Lake Havasu City comes from. So we want to make sure we're maintaining that infrastructure and making plans for the future to make sure that we can continue to provide good service.
Yeah, initially it does come from the river.
Yeah.
But then once we take it out, it goes there. Yeah, it'd be great if we can get it the state park site. We're hopeful that that's it because it's very close to the water plant. So then to connect it into that's pretty exciting. And some initial results indicate that is a potentially good site, and that's why we're looking at that in the first place. So, and we appreciate State Parks' participation. They've been working really great with us in Lake Havasu City on our priorities, and obviously that's one of our main priorities. So, yes, quick question, Ann?
Quick question: what percentage of maximum capacity is that setup, the rainwater collection setup, being run at now?
The rainy well collector, we're pulling water out of there that in terms of capacity we could keep going. So we're nowhere near capacity as far as a number to throw at you. All depends on the number of pumps, and if we wanted to make improvements in terms of capacity, we could do out there as well too. But I think we're using just maybe a third of those legs right now to pull water. So yeah.
Depends how many showers people take in the morning. Yeah. So
and think about that though too. And throughout the year, what we have to do to make sure we're planning properly to provide services, right? So we have a different population in December than we do in July, than we do in May, than we, so we have ebbs and flows, and that impacts our water supply, it impacts our sewer operations. So we got to make sure that when we look at capacity, that we're always looking at the highest water use during the year, where we see the most folks in town.
Yeah, so our system is, we pull the water, that's where the water comes from, and then we have water tanks throughout the city. You've seen the large tanks, and we have a rehabilitation project to make sure that those tanks are in good condition. We feed all of that water into those tanks, and then it's gravity fed from there. And so, anytime you turn on your water, you're going to have water because of our gravity fed system in those tanks. And then the rainy well resupplies that water. So that discussion will happen on December 10th, on Tuesday, and that's probably the highlight of that council meeting. And then we'll resume in January. Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Census. It's coming very quickly. We've talked about it for the last several months. But every 10 years, the U.S. Constitution requires a complete count of U.S. citizens across all sectors. Lake Havasu City is no different. Census Day is on April 1st, is the actual day. New this time, for the very first time in census history, is it's going to be primarily online. So you'll start getting some notifications early in the year. In like the first week of March, you'll get your actual postcard with your unique indicator code for you to log on and do your count. What is so significant and important for citizens of Lake Havasu City about the U.S. Census is that all data that comes from that helps fund our organizations. So when you pay an income tax, or you pay the state or the gas tax at the pump, or any of those state shared revenues, they're redistributed back to the cities and towns across Arizona and the counties across Arizona based on your population data. And so we need to make sure that everybody is counted so that we get the right number. The money is getting distributed to all of those cities and towns regardless. So we just need to make sure we get our fair amount. Unique to Lake Havasu City is we have a lot of folks that have, this is a second home destination. And second home destination means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So if you primarily spend most of your time here, 6, 7 months, 8 months here, but the grandkids live back east or up north, and that's where you spend your summers, and that's where you have always lived, and now you're saying that in the U.S. Census that you live there and you don't live here, you use the services here. So you need those services to be paid for here in this area. So we're asking that you have these conversations with your friends and your family and your neighbors about making sure that they count themselves in Lake Havasu City, where they use all of their services, so we can pay for our roads and our parks and our police and our fire and all of those things that are so important to us. It's also going to be unique because it's online, and that scares some people. So if you have any neighbors that are deficient in the use of electronic devices, and you are efficient in it, help them out. See what you can do to get them to fill out their survey and let them know. And then finally, sometimes the census can get a little political about the questions that are asked. Just be assured, it's 60 plus years that information is kept confidential. So, if they know that I have 2 bathrooms in my home, I don't really care if they know in 70 years that I had, 2 bathrooms in my home. But it's information that's so important and critical for Lake Havasu City for a funding source. Now, in addition, we get a lot of folks that say, hey, I want this restaurant, or I want this business. They look at census data and population before they even determine if they're going to come into an area. So we need to make sure we have the correct numbers for that. And then we also have all of our nonprofits and social service agencies that rely on grants and grant opportunities. When they fill out a grant, they use U.S. Census data information to supply as backup for whatever grant opportunity they're looking for. So for those organizations to be funded through the grants that they wish to seek or desire to seek, it's important that we have the correct U.S. Census data. I think I hit every talking point.
You absolutely hit every talking point, but just to reiterate, I think we already pay the taxes, and we have conversations about roads and that funding coming from the state. Well, that funding comes from the state based on our population. Population is determined by census. That's why it's so critically important that we get a proper count in Lake Havasu City. And I think the last question that we get from a lot of folks is, I'm here for 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, and I live in a variety of different locations and so forth. When in doubt, check the box for Havasu. That's what it comes down.
We are actually, before we're going to be dark in January because the first Friday is kind of in a holiday week still with New Year's week, so we will not be meeting together in January. But significant that will be happening in January is, I'm sure you might have heard, 2020 is an election year. Have you heard? All right, so the federal level, of course, all of that's going on, but it's also an election year here in Lake Havasu City as well. Significant to us is we have 3 council positions that will be open, that folks will be running for. Packets will be available at the city clerk's office in mid-January. Just keep an eye out for releases from the city on the actual date that they'll be released. What a packet means is it's data that you have to go and fill out to run for office. You have to get signatures to run for office, and the city clerk will go over all the details if you're interested. But the election will be happening in 2020. We have the primary, which has been moved up this year. It's the very first Tuesday in August, so it'll be moved up. Last session or last cycle that we had city candidates that were running for office, all of the positions were elected in the primary. So that included my position as mayor and 3 council members in 2018 that were all elected in the primary. If they're not elected in the primary based on numbers and data, then it'll move into the general election in November. So just sometimes the federal government overshadows what we have going on. So I just want to let you know that there is an election going on here in Havasu, and we'll have candidates that we'll start getting to know very soon, I would anticipate. We have a couple of events that we've attended which are kind of exciting. We just want to highlight them because there is things happening in Lake Havasu City from a development and a job creation standpoint, which are pretty exciting. Most recently, yesterday, we attended a groundbreaking down at the Park Avenue site, which is, it was in the newspaper this morning. Keller Williams is going to be developing a new office complex, about 13,000 square feet of space. With beautiful views over looking Lake Havasu, and being the first development in this Park Avenue Highway 95 frontage, which is basically right next to the Aquatic Center. All of that dirt heading south next to the Aquatic Center is Park Avenue area. So that is pretty exciting. That'll continue to obviously create short-term construction jobs, but long-term jobs for the folks that will be occupying that office space. We also attended a groundbreaking for My Pampered Home, which is the omni-channel retailer that's moving out to the mall location that we've talked about in the past. This is, again, the mall has been rezoned to allow the mall proper, which is basically the center section of the mall, the interior center section. So let's use the movie theater as our guiding point for a second. And if you're standing there looking at the movie theater in front of us, everything to the left or heading south towards Dillard's will be, as it's envisioned now, would be employment uses. So that would be omni-channel retailers that might have a mix of retail / distribution / uses that people can come into the retailer, maybe in 1,000 square foot, 1,500 square feet space, then you can touch, feel, and purchase product. Or you could be on your smartphone or your computer or your device and order that product and have it delivered the next day. And into your home site. So that's what an omni-channel retailer is basically just meeting the consumer where they are. Great examples of them are what's already happening now. You might go on your phone and click your grocery list and hit send, and then you go drive up to the grocery store and you park in a stall, and then your groceries are in your trunk all of a sudden. Yeah, that's an omni-channel retailer. So that's kind of the employment uses is that section of the mall. Central, again, we're back over at the movie theater. That would be, as envisioned, the entertainment zone. So that movie theaters, restaurants, those types of uses. And then heading north towards Walmart, that would be more traditional retail, although still in the omni-channel sector, but that'd be more retail-based things as we know it today, where you walk into a store, there's a store full of things, and you purchase them if you so choose. But many stores already are omni-channel retailers. So when you go to JCPenney, for example, .com, and you order a pair of black slacks, you are ordering them in a size whatever, and they say, oh great, it pings the Lake Havasu City store, and they say, yep, we have that black slack, we throw it in a shipping bag and it's shipped out to your home in Oklahoma. That's already happening today. That happens at Walmart, to JCPenney's, and many of our retailers across the city. But that is what's happening at the mall. We were able to attend the groundbreaking of My Pampered Home, which is a local company that is expanding out to the mall and will be home to over 50 employees when they open. They have a very aggressive construction schedule. So by second quarter of this year, of 2020, they anticipate to be open. So pretty exciting things that are happening on the job creation and development front. And we're continuing to work with a variety of different businesses that are doing those types of things. You were at both of those. Do you have any thoughts, Jess, on those?
No, but it's just fantastic to see in both of these projects, these groundbreakings involve small investment in the community that's grown and grown and grown over the years. So some great entrepreneurial spirit that in Havasu that's reflected in both of these projects. Love to see that.
Two events that are happening, and then we're going to open it up for your questions. Any question you want to ask us is fine, but then we'll open up to the section of the program where it's all you. But we have our next household hazardous waste event is December 14th. So it's Saturday, December 14th. That's the hazardous household waste. So paint, oils,
computers, electronics, all those types of things will be collected. That's been sitting in your garage. Here's the proper way to dispose of all those
What was
things.
that date again?
It's December 14th. It's a Saturday. So Saturday, December 14th, bring all your hazardous waste down to 900 London Bridge Road, which is the city maintenance yard on London Bridge Road. Those of you that attended the last one might have waited in line forever, and it felt like it was never going to end. We're hopeful that won't happen this time because we just recently had one. So the time that everyone was waiting, it had been, what, 5+ years since we had one?
I think our best guess, we're trying to find out what that date was, like 8 to 10+ years ago. That was the last one. So we had all that stuff collecting in our garages, was all brought out last year. So, and we'd like to thank our partner, the folks that put on that event is Republic Services. So, and they did a great job last year. They learned from the long lines that we saw last year, and are making adjustments to make sure that we can bring more people in quicker.
What time? That's a great question.
8 to noon.
Oh, 8 to noon. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where was the location?
It's 900 London Bridge Road. I believe we had coffee with the mayor and city manager there last time. Yeah, so the same facility we were at last time. Yeah, there'll be a drive-through area, and there'll be units to take care of. But that's a popular event that people love, so please take advantage of it. Clean out your garage. If you don't clean out your garage and you miss the 14th, doesn't mean you can put your hazardous waste anywhere else except in your garage until our next one. So,
We're doing this every year in December.
Yeah. And then we also have our community dinner on Friday, December 13th. So the community dinner is an event put on by local organizations, the city, some of our churches, and it's on December 13th. There's 2 different seatings. At 4 o'clock is the first seating, and then at 6 o'clock is the second seating. Santa will be there with gifts for family members if you would like to go. We have about 1,000 people that we've served each year. You'll be able to engage with your city council. We're all there serving you, and we'd love to have you there. It's open to everybody. It's really about community engagement and fellowship with each other in the holiday spirit. So please come and enjoy a great traditional Christmas holiday feast with us. And again, it's on December 13th on Friday. So at the Aquatic Center, the community center, the community/aquatic center there on Highway 95. And that's our program. So now we'll turn it over to you and any questions you may have. Yeah, Dave.
My question is the Highway 95. I know you hate to hear about it, but I know you really don't have anything to say about it.
I know, I love that because I get to deflect. Yeah, it's the perfect thing for me. Talking about it all day long.
But I was down there on the southbound, and I stopped the crew, and I asked him, is this finished? And he said, yes. That road is the most terrible road and it's our tax money that's doing this.
Yes.
Are they ever going to put that road so you won't have to hit the bumps and it's just rough?
Where are you talking about in 95?
I'm talking about where Iowa.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
Oh, I was like, we have a solution for that one, so that's good.
I mean, but does anybody inspect that road or drive down that road? It's just as rough as heck. I figured there could be some improvement in that, and it doesn't no improvement. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, you know, it's not working out.
Yeah, so the question is about Highway 95 and if there's any abilities to rehab that so that it's in better condition. Fortunately, we're specifically talking about the area of Kiowa, from basically west Tacoma to just in front of North Palo Verde, kind of that section. Right now, there's some road work. Vice Mayor Lane gave us an update a little earlier today, but there is still a micro seal that's supposed to go on there. So when you're driving down that road, your teeth will not chatter like they do today when you're driving that road. Most importantly, south of the light at Kiowa, heading towards West Tacoma, that will be done. We're also working with some of our state leadership to see what we can do about a more big picture approach to Highway 95. So it's Highway 95 is a little over 20 years old.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at what is the solution for it to be retrofitted properly. And we look like we're getting some open ears, which is really great. Doors haven't been slammed in our face like other ones, so I'm optimistic. Well, yeah, we open them. We're really good at opening. We always push, but it's easier when the door's open and we can just walk through. So, but Highway 95 is, although it's so important and critical to Lake Havasu City, it is a state highway, and so we're prohibited as the city to do much except use our influence, which we are using. So, thank you for the question, but that specific area will be resolved. Yes.
How about Smoke Tree and Swanson?
I love it. These are all ones that are going to happen. So yeah, Smoke Tree and Swanson is another one that is coming. Yeah. So that's a city road, and we'll take full responsibility. And there is money in the budget to be doing that, and it'll be done by June 30th. I would assume.
It'll be done in this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. It's about $130,000 to fix that.
Have you done any I talked to you a couple of months ago about putting a bocce ball court.
Yes.
Has anything happened with that at Jack Hardy Park?
No, but we did talk to Mike Keene about that. He's the Parks and Recreation Director, and there's a Parks and Rec Advisory Board that makes recommendations to the City Council, and so that floats through. So although I'm generally a private sector guy, I'm your mayor in the public sector, and a couple of months is like the speed of light. So it goes through lots of public processes before we do anything. So how things start in city government is you have a conversation with us, and we started that conversation, and then we have to make sure that it's in the best interest and the good of all before we expend public dollars. So, yep, thank you for bringing it up. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I was in here and asked you about dumping out at the city dumps for cleaning up in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I haven't heard anything about it yet.
Well, sir, you did hear from me. I called you, and I gave you a follow-up about cleaning up in the desert and what you could do. And if you were to do an organized event with groups, I was able to work with Supervisor Johnson, who's a county supervisor, and Republic Services to put something together. And you said to me you don't want to work with groups. And so,
Exactly.
So I can help you from a group perspective, but from an individual perspective, there's not an avenue to do that.
What if the city was to say, come in and sign up with the city and clean it, so you could get access to dumping in the dumps?
Yeah, a great suggestion. It was the suggestion was signing up with the city to do that. We're talking about area that is not in the jurisdiction of the city. It's outside of the city limits. So we are only able to do stuff with public dollars in the city limits. And that's why I engaged our county supervisor to assist you with a solution for you, but that didn't work for you. So
you say it's not in the city limits. I'll grant that. I don't want to look at the managerial lines in the desert. But my question is, how many people come from Kingman, Bullhead City, Laughlin, Parker, and dump their trash in our desert? The people that trash in our desert is from people in our city, or snowbirds that visit our city and leave the trash when they leave. It's not people from other parts of the county. And how many people in snowbirds go home to Wisconsin and say, boy, Mohave County sure is dirty. They say, no, boy, Havasu sure is dirty with the trash around. All I want to do, I spend my time out in the desert, cleaning it up, my gas, my truck, my trailer, and a day doing it. All I want to do is be able to dump and get rid of it without costing me money that I can't afford.
Yeah, so we appreciate that. And
I think, I mean, I appreciate your efforts, what you're doing out there too, but I think it's important to understand what the mayor has indicated, that it's important to work within groups.
Okay, let me ask you another
one second, sir.
Let's take a vote now and see how many people say, hey, yeah, allow him to dump it out there for free, or leave the trash in the desert.
How about a solution like this? There are existing groups out there that are doing cleanup in the desert. They did a big cleanup a couple of weeks ago, brought in tons, literally tons and tons of debris from the desert. They worked with Republic Services and were able to dispose of those that trash free of charge. Thank you to Republic Services. Join those groups. Be a part of those efforts to get out there and do that. We need to do that from a group or a bigger picture.
I went out and cleaned up behind those groups, especially on the island, and they told me there was done, and I called off 2 trailerfuls of trash that they didn't pick up because they had to dig the tire out of the sand. They had to pull the mattress out of the sand. They had to pull a rug out of the sand. They didn't want to do it. And I pulled out 2 trailers after they already did it.
Thank you.
All I want to do is get rid of the stuff when I get cleaned up.
yeah, there's no avenue. When I talked to the county right after our last meeting, they had a fund at one time, but what they were finding is when individuals were allowed to access or utilize the fund, that they were taking old cars and boats and tires and stuff that might have been in their garage or their backyard, using that for personal use, or they would take those monies and try and recycle it through metal recycling entities. I guess you can make some money doing that. So that's why the fund had to go away. But we've tried, and we will continue to work with you if you can, but you got to work in an organized group for us to be able to help you.
If you had a person sign up with the city and they was on that list, you would know they're cleaning up the desert and not hauling off their house.
Understood. This gentleman over here has been very patient.
Yes.
In the red hat.
In the red hat? Yes. Hi, welcome.
Welcome. My name is Bob LaMarche, and I've been a member of this community for 28 years. And I've been recently working with Lake Havasu Golf Club to provide an outlet for people who are handicapped or otherwise restricted to, and I call it get a breath of fresh air. And so we worked with the golf course down there to start this program in February, this last February. Now we've got over 200 people in it. And it's a matter of creating an awakening in the community, I think is the reason why I'm here today. We started a 501c3 so that people can provide funds for these organizations and get it as a tax issue. Right now we have 5 organizations that are participating in the system, and we also joined with Junior Golf to care for them while they're out there on the golf course and allow the parents of them to contribute to the program. We provide water out there. We provide golf balls and range time and all that through the golf course. So the golf course has been completely supportive of all of our efforts out there and have done a lot to help us get the program rolling. My only restrictions, I guess, are the number of people, because I have 2 golf pros now that help with the training, and we're getting so many people that I got to find more trainers to cover for it. And the reason why I came here today was to create an awakening, let people know these are things that are going on, and that support the Lake Havasu Golf Club because they're supporting us, and let you know that we have this program going on in the community.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Great job. It's programs like that that make Lake Havasu City such a special place. Donna?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, how about an update on Riviera?
Okay.
And then the second one, do you know of any volunteer opportunities for the Veterans Court, like to follow up, that kind of thing? Who would we get in touch with if there isn't one? How can we get one started so that we can help move that process even further along?
Excellent. So 2 questions. The first is, are there volunteer opportunities with the Veterans Treatment Court? The answer is yes. The first opportunity is to sign up for Judge Kalali's newsletter he mentioned earlier, but you can also reach out to the court system and talk to Colleen Lowry, and she is the program coordinator for Veterans Court. She'll get you on the list. Bless you. And the Riviera update, we don't have much of an update since last time, but it is moving forward. Last time we reported when we met in November that behind those barricades there is a lot of work happening. City Council and City staff was fortunate enough to take a tour back there in early November, and they are moving earth like you would not believe. So they have overcome all of their obstacles with Arizona State Parks in the state of Arizona. They being the private developer. Just as a quick reminder for everyone, sometimes I talk about things so often that I forget to bring people up to speed. So as a reminder, it's the Riviera Project's a public-private partnership, public being Lake Havasu City. The second public is Arizona State Parks, and then the private developer, the Comac Enterprises, that are building neighborhoods and adjacent land to that area. Lake Havasu City's responsibility was to put in a roadway, a stoplight, and some sewer infrastructure in that area. We have completed all of our obligations. Now the state park is being developed under a concession agreement with Arizona State Parks and a private developer that's going to open up the first mainland boat launch facility in Lake Havasu City that has been wanted for decades here in Lake Havasu City. We already have the ramps underneath the water, the ramps to launch your boat. They are now putting in the additional infrastructure, parking lots, parking lights, all those types of things. That'll be phase 1 that'll open first. Phase 2 would then have the addition of marina services, maybe a restaurant, maybe a store. Phase 3 would then have boat storage type system. So a 3-phase approach that they'll be developing that state park, and that'll be used with a fee. You'll be able to use that state park as you have to use all state parks for a fee. And then it's also opening up the private neighborhoods, which are 5 neighborhoods out there. What they're moving the land for is the very first neighborhood and putting in the roadway system into their neighborhoods. And they're making great progress. We would anticipate the stoplight being turned on first quarter of 2020, which at that point potentially could open up that intersection. The only thing that we wouldn't want to open the intersection for is there's a lot of heavy equipment moving back there. And so just for the safety of citizens, until there's actually a thing to drive to, which will happen next year, but we just want to make sure all of our citizens are safe. But that's a Riviera update. You had a question, sir? And then we'll come over to you, Mark.
Okay. I'm with St. Vincent de Paul. I have a question on service animals. We're getting absolutely inundated with people they get these vests online, they slap them on the animal, they come in there, they want to come into our food distribution building, our stores and stuff. About 10 years ago, I came up because the animal control is through the police department here. I was told by the police department that we can tell those people with a service animal, show me what your dog can do. And they said 9 out of 10 times the people turn around and leave. But I mean, it has really gotten out of hand. I mean, they come in there in our food distribution building, they have some big mutt with some kind of vest on them and stuff. That ain't the way that's supposed to work. Can I still say to those people, show me what your dog can do for you? And if they can't do that, take an exit.
All right, so the question is about service animals and what you can do. The service animals has been preempted by state law, so it's state law, not local law, that has to be followed. It's very nerve-wracking as the person that has to approach somebody that has a service animal or even a supposed service animal in an area that probably is not the most acceptable. I also get nervous talking about it, and so because people get so passionate about what it is. But I will share this story with you that I just read online, and everything you read online is correct. I just read it this week, though. That's very interesting. So, and these are for the folks that are maybe pushing the envelope. So an emotional support dog is not a service animal under ADA and is not protected under ADA service animal regulations. So, and that's not to say that dog doesn't provide great support for those that need those types of animals to assist them, but it's not covered under ADA. And so because it's a difficult conversation, the article that I read actually deals with the other side of it. People that have animals that are performing functions for them to actually get around and survive throughout life. And so these people are going to restaurants, and the dog or the animal provides a service to alert them when they might have the oncomings of a seizure, or it might alert them when they have some other medical issue that's going to happen. The dog's being well behaved. The dog's at work. You don't pet those dogs. They're very well behaved. You don't hear them barking. They're right either between the owner's legs or right to the side. They're in work mode. And so the article shed some light on the other side of the equation, that these people that actually need these animals to perform functions for them to move throughout society are being criticized or questioned in a way that they shouldn't be, because there's people that are violating the intents of the law. And so if you are a person that does that and purchased your vest online or on Amazon or wherever source is, please think twice when you do that, because there are repercussions throughout society and a community to do that. Service animals do provide very, very needed medical support services for citizens within our community, just follow the regulations of ADA. But state law it dictates that. I'll get a little more specific with you offline on what that looks like. Yes?
They have to have a license?
No, yeah, there is none of those requirements. So, yes.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just not well versed enough to speak on TV right now, so I would rather get my facts before I talk about it on television. But I could speak in that very blanket statement because it was timely with the article that I read from a different perspective. I've never taken that perspective on service animals before I read that article just this week. So, Mark.
Back to your Riviera development, is that going to be considered within the city limits?
Yes.
Okay, so it won't be like Havasu High.
Yes.
And then one other quick question. Have you guys ever reached out to Governor Doug Ducey for emergency flood relief funds for circumstances like this? 3 years I've been here, the winters are getting a lot rainier than ever before. Maybe I thought, you guys could reach out to the governor and say, hey, can we get some emergency flood disaster relief to help us in our situation until we can get on our own feet to take care of the roads?
Yeah, so the question was, is Riviera going to be in the city limits? The answer is yes, it is in city limits. The second was, have we ever petitioned Governor Ducey and his office to help with support emergency flood dollars to help when we have some storm events? And the answer is no. And the reason why is to make things even more complicated. The wash basins in Lake Havasu City and all the washes are federal. They're controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers, there's a permit that you must get, the 404 permit, before you build in an area that is a floodplain, flood zone, whatever it may be. And so when Robert McCulloch decided to build this beautiful community, which we're so grateful for, he filled out those permits and with inherent risk of what that wash basins look like. And so we assume risk as citizens to do that. So that opportunity is not there, but great thought. We love innovation like that, so thank you. All right, we'll take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Yes?
Well, you've covered some of this, but I didn't get any sleep until I wrote this down. So
Okay.
let's read it.
All right, well, I'm going to get close to you so that I don't have to synopsis so the TV folks can hear it.
Okay, the subject is rocks and gravel in the road after heavy rain. We live in the south end on one of those roads that go from east downhill to the west, and there's absolutely no sidewalk or curbs. After heavy rain, many rocks and a lot of gravel flows down and ends up in front of our houses at the bottom of the hill. I have a list of 7 questions that I would like to read and possible solutions. Number 1, what is the cost of adding sidewalks and curbs? Number 2, what is the cost of adding only curbs? 3 is what is the cost for a front-end loader and operator to scrape the road? 4, what is the cost for a street sweeper operator to sweep after the load? Number 5, has there ever been a study for a less expensive method to solve this situation? You mentioned something about that. If not, may I suggest one? Number 7, are you familiar with wheel stops?
I'm not, no.
Wheel stops, they are the heavy 6-foot-long cement stops found in parking lots to stop cars from moving forward. The city could install these end to end in front of each lot that would wish to have them. As an example, I checked and found that they sell for about $45 each, and it would take 11 of these to go across my yard, which comes to approximately $500. But if the city were to purchase a couple of thousand, they might get them for $5 each. Would you be able to check into something like this to alleviate the situation?
Excellent.
And what was the name of that website?
What, lhcaz.gov, lhcaz.gov, az.gov, and you'll find some solutions for your front yard so you don't lose your front yard during a storm. So I think we addressed most of those. The curbs are about $50 million to do.
Just curbs.
Yeah, just curbs, because you have to widen the roads, throw the curbs in. Your wheel stops, I said I wasn't familiar with them. I just didn't know that's what they were called. So I am familiar with those. Those wheel stops, believe it or not, will go down in a heavy rain. They will roll right down the...
They have holes in them.
Yeah, but it's like the ping pong effect I talked about earlier. It hits one, bounces off the other, and it would take other people's front yards out. So the cost to do the cleanup, I mean, this is what shocks so many people is of course if it costs so much money to do this, as stewards of our taxpayer dollars, we would have installed and invested $50 million in curbing. But it's only about 100, and I say only because it's a lot of money, but $125,000 a year in storm cleanup that we pay. So it would take so many years for us to even come to that level to get the 50 million. We also have a voter mandate when I'm going to say the word, when we did the sewers, that there was a discussion at that time when we went out for the bonding to do sewers, or excuse me, of course sewers, but to do curbs and sidewalks at that time, and the voters did not want that. And so that's important to, I work for the voters and the constituents of Lake Havasu City, and so it's important to take that into effect. So, but what's happening in your neighborhood can be solved with some really fairly easy solutions. Jess, you're a little bit familiar with some of that, if you want to share what that looks like.
My back still hurts from doing my improvements at my house. So
he was just telling me yesterday that he did his house. So
having clearing out that front area of your yard, replacing the small rock with larger rock, then we'll capture the small rock from floating into the roadways. So that's one of those things. Not plugging any businesses specifically, but I did see a few folks out there that are advertising those types of services in the community. They'll come out to your house and do that for you if need be. So there are folks out there that do that. If more residents and more homeowners would do that, we'd see a whole lot less rock in the streets. So that's and on the website shows you how to do that specifically. Yeah. And one thing too the ping pong effect is real. So if you fix an issue over here, sometimes you're creating 3 times the problem over there. Yeah. So if people up top are doing some of those things, it's probably going to cause a bigger mess for you. But I will say this: that our city engineer and a few of our folks, engineers within city employees, are out there right now looking at the hardest hit areas and looking at maybe doing some improvements. So we're protecting the road and not spending money every year on crews to clear out. So I don't know. That's not every neighborhood. That's not every property. But we're slowly looking at some improvements. But in the meantime, as residents, take a look at those solutions in your yard.
Yeah, there's one point that I forgot to make, and I generally make it when it comes to this, is those of us that have lived here a really long time, you remember we used to have to think our way home during a storm. Yeah. Like if a storm happened, you'd have to think your way home, like how am I going to do this, what road do I take? Now it truly is very limited how we have to think. So our flood control dollars are working, and as Jess alluded to, city staff at every storm event looks at the hardest hit areas and adds that into future planning to use those dollars to help control that with. So I think we had one question. Did you have a question? And then we're going to go to fast facts. Then we'll be here afterwards to answer any questions as well. But our TV time is up. So
the desert between Oro Grande and Bison. A few weeks ago, there was a couple of BLM. I don't know if they were BLM signs. Big signs that said no explosives, and they had a
list of a whole bunch of explosives.
Yes.
They're both gone now.
Oh.
They were at the entrance to Bison?
Pardon me?
They were at the entrance to Bison?
Pasadena.
Oh, Pasadena, okay.
And the signs have been ripped down. I
Yeah.
just wondered.
Yeah, so that is state property or federal property. You probably don't want to steal those signs. But we have, in engaging with our federal partners and our state partners, actually one of our citizens, Mary Van Roy, has been very, very helpful in this front, volunteering to install some of these signs about what you can and cannot do in the desert, which is about explosives and those things, but people remove those. They should not be removed. That is federal property, and I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I don't want to see one. So, all right, we're going to end with some fast facts. In the Veterans Court, we have 303 participants. 164 of our citizens have successfully completed the Veterans Treatment Court. The sobriety rate of those attendees is 89%, which is fantastic. When asked about what they've accomplished, 47.3% of those folks say they've overcome the substance abuse issue. 31.5% said changing attitudes and beliefs. 26% said that they have healthy relationships. 26% said they have fun being sober, which is that's a cool thing. Yeah, that they know it can happen. A couple of fire department statistics. So from January 1st to October 31st, so that would be the first 10 months of the calendar year, again, not our fiscal year, we've had so far EMS incidences, we had 4,427 EMS instances. We've had 122 fires that we've responded to. We've had, let's see, 2,385 fire inspections. And so those are fire inspections of like commercial structures in which our citizens go into. And finally, for our reuse customers, we used 590 million gallons of reuse water this year. So that's 369 million flushes of a low flow toilet. Kind of cool. And then Public Works lowers and raises. So just think about staff for a second. We have 53 flagpoles that are on city property that when we have to lower them to half or take them down for weather events, 53 of them our city crews are out maintaining. So if you maintain your own flagpole, you know what a feat that is. So for 53 of them to all happen simultaneously at once, we have a fantastic staff. So on behalf of Lake Havasu City, thank you so much for being here. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. And we will see you in February. And I don't know where you see me, but we'll tell you when we know. And yeah, you'll see me around town in the meantime. But Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Take care.